Thanks, Jim. Justin Stone here from EliteBaseball.tv. This week, the tip of the week, I'm going to kind of give you some insight to what I do with pro players when they come into me in the offseason. And it's neat to watch the playoffs right now, and you're probably watching with your son or daughter, players on your team. And sometimes these youth players that we deal with on an everyday basis look at a big league guy, and they think of them as like, these guys are aliens from another planet, that they don't exist in everyday life. And I think the story I'm going to tell you today will resonate with you of how hard it is to be a big leaguer, the work that they put in to get there, and how they're really no different than the 9 and 10-year-olds that we work with on an everyday basis too with our youth teams and in lessons for my case. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the player that I'm working with. He's a AA guy. He's on the fast track to the big leagues. In my mind, unless the injury, something freakish happens, this guy's going to be a big leaguer. And when he comes into me, I want to give him all of the answers for a holistic approach of an off-season plan and training. So what I do with these players is the first thing is I ask them for all of their game footage from when they were going well during the year to when they weren't going well. And I look at this and I try to find that if there are any consistencies or inconsistencies of those two different areas. Going well, or are they doing something different from when they weren't going well? I do a statistical analysis of just statistics that you can find online of what I'm looking for here is hard hit average. I'm looking for ground ball fly ball ratio. I'm looking for ISO power. I'm looking for strikeout to walk ratio and OPS. Basically what I'm seeing here, how often are we hitting the ball hard in the air? One of the most important things I do with these players is have about an hour-long conversation, sometimes on the phone or via Skype, getting into their mental psyche. Just like the youth players that we have. We have players that excel in the cage, they get out to the game and they struggle. You've heard of a 5 o'clock hitter at the big league level that looks really good in BP and hitting balls out of the park and then struggles in the game and can't put it together. Reason why? There's some mental stressor. There's some mental aspect that I need to bring to the forefront of getting into these players' psyche. The same thing happens for our amateur players. If we can identify what the stressors of that player are, and we can bring them to the limelight, oftentimes these things are subconscious. And once you identify them, you get them out into the open and you talk about it, I end up being like a psychiatrist more than I do a hitting coach. And sometimes that can just relieve that stress and anxiety right there, and we can get back to a high performance level. It's one of the most important pieces of this holistic approach to training that I do. Finally, we get into the cage and we start looking at their statistical analysis from what they did in a game, and we incorporate that to their mechanical approach. So now I'm seeing specifically what was their exit velocity on average, what was their launch angle on average, and that's more for me as a hitting coach to identify what they're doing well from a mechanical standpoint at the plate. In this case, it had identified a very important stat. He hits the ball hard. He has a 96 up to a 110 exit velocity. He's at or above the big league average for that. But to the pull side, he was -4 degrees in his launch angle. So right there, we have objective data that says something is going on the inside pitch, and guys are exposing him there. Yeah, we can factor this into his approach, and he's always going to be stronger out over the plate like a lot of hitters are. But when we get to that inside pitch, we've identified a flaw that now I go to the 2D video, and I'll see if we can piece this together. And we did. Now, the point I'm going to make of this is we have players at the youth level that want immediate satisfaction in everything they do in a cage. Hitting lessons are often broken into half-hour segments. And in a half hour, you can scratch the surface on some mechanical adjustments, mental adjustments a player needs to make, but really what you're giving them is the tools to go out and work on it on their own. But we know that the level of frustration can come very early, very easy, and there's been many times we've all seen this as a coach where a kid gets into tears, he gets so upset. Those little crocodile tears come out because hitting is hard. And we understand this, but they don't realize it at the youth level because they want immediate satisfaction. You tell them to do something that you want them to change, and if they can't do it in their first 3 swings, they're frustrated. It's hard. And frankly, this is why we lose a lot of people to baseball, because it's so difficult. So here's the point I'm making. When we got to the inside pitch with this guy that's going to be a big leaguer, and we were working on a specific mechanic of his torso getting into his front leg too much and too early, there was a couple different ways that we can attack this with hitters, and I've had this hitter for 10 years, so I knew the approach that we probably needed to take. But he struggled to feel it and do it because, like all mechanical adjustments, initially, it's foreign to them. He was so bad at this body mechanic initially that I took the bat away from him, I took the ball away from him, and I said, I want you to just feel your body as I did these moves with him. I put my hands on his body, and I moved his hips a certain way while putting pressure against his front foot against a wall to feel bracing and stability. This is the same thing I do with 10-year-olds. I get down on a knee, I put my hands on him, I move him around, I get him to feel things. And it was hard for a guy that's going to be in the big leagues. So the next time, and this is very powerful for me from a lesson standpoint, I have a 13-year-old come into the cage, and he has crocodile tears in his eyes because he can't do something immediately that I know is really, really hard. And I say, I just had a pro player come in here that he was so bad at the mechanic you're trying to do that I took the bat and ball away from him and said, just do this with your body. And then he couldn't do it. So then I put my hands on him. I said, feel this with your body. Hitting is hard. Making mechanical adjustments is hard. And even though it might be a 30-minute lesson, I'm really looking 3 months down the road that I want you to be able to accomplish this. So the next time you watch these guys on TV and he strikes out 15 times in a series and he hits a home run, that home run is very satisfying because hitting is hard. And the big league guys that have gotten there, they've gotten there because they're driven, they realize it's a process, and they too at some point in their life have had crocodile tears. So keep that in mind. As we go through these off-season adjustments, you're going to go through periods that is harder than others. Keep that positive reinforcement. And think about that story right there of what I'm doing with a professional hitter right now. Well, for the next week, he's not going to have a bat in his hand as he figures out his body. Until next week, this is Justin Stone. Come check us out on EliteBaseball.tv where you can work just like I do with these professional players, one-on-one with me remotely and digitally. That's how I spend most of my time during the season, keeping my eye on my pro players and my college players, and now we can do it for you too, the amateur players. Check us out, EliteBaseball.tv, and we'll see you on the field.